The people you see that are highly successful and rich didn't do what other people say they should have done. And so look at Robert's career, right? I think he's a
Yeah.
perfect example. Yes, he's very stubborn in his ways, but he knew what he wanted the whole time. And everything he did along the way was against the rules. He did a black and white zombie comic for 15 years, sometimes funding it himself because it wasn't making money. To the point where like images, maybe you shouldn't do this book anymore. And Robert went, no, we're going to keep doing this book. The same thing happened with Invincible. 10 years, 10 or 15 years with that book too. And he didn't do it in the way everybody told him he was supposed to do it. When it came to selling the rights to both TV shows, he did everything they tell you can't do in Hollywood. He's like, if you're going to do a Walking Dead TV show, I have to be in charge of everything. And nobody lets you do that in Hollywood. Nobody. And Robert's like, I'm not budging on this. And of course, he turned it into a highly successful TV show. Then he did the same thing with Invincible. He probably got many offers, but he was like, until Ryan and I have full control, we're not interested in talking to you. And now you see the Invincible cartoon is exactly like the comic. And so he didn't do what everybody tells you have to do. He didn't follow those rules. He said, no, this is the way I'm going to do it. And that's a hard road to walk.
I want to walk that road though.
You have to be hard-headed and realize, I mean, keep in mind, for 15 years, Kirkman's books weren't doing well enough for him not to have a full-time job.
Mhm.
15 years. So keep that in mind. Are you willing to put out your comic every month for 15 years, even if you have to keep a full-time job and it's not making you any money? Do you believe in your concept that strongly? And that's
For
where I
now.
think I'm not saying I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm just,
No, 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 no. I'm
that's
trying to genuinely answer that question right now. For now, I'm telling myself, but I feel like I'm not gonna follow it because personally, because a lot of people are saying, "Oh, you want to learn to make comics or you want to learn to make movies, you should go to school." And I specifically said no because I didn't want the school to teach me how to make movies because I wanted to be able to keep my own vision without any rules thrown upon me, if that makes any
Mhm.
sense. And same
Yeah.
thing with my comic. I've never took a single drawing class in my life or anything along those lines. And I think you saw a little bit of it. That was completely just like my intuition. That's how I drew it. And based off of like other stuff that I like, because I also read comics and stuff. But I genuinely didn't want other, because even with writing, you give a creative writing assignment to 10 different English teachers and you get 10 different, completely different grades, right?
Hmm. Yep.
One year, and I still remember in school, when I was in school, one year I get good grades in writing, one year I get terrible grades in writing, and I genuinely did not understand why.
Because it's all
And
opinion, right? Yeah.
exactly. I feel the same way about storytelling, and it's a form of art. That's the beauty of it. It's subjective. It's supposed to
Hmm.
be unique with for each person. I don't I want to sh when I'm writing, I do have artists working for me, but I'm very picky. I would literally to the point I'd be like, his arm is posed the wrong way. Can you make it like this? And I take a photo of myself posing and I
Yeah.
send it to them. Do it this pose, not like this. And it's like
Yeah.
the most minor thing ever, but that's also why I prefer quality over quantity. I'd rather take forever to make the perfect story than a lot of bad stories. But I do
Yeah.
understand Robert Kirkman's like, we need to publish every month. And I
Right.
respect him so much. Because that's the
Hmm.
biggest problem I have, is that I need to be less of a perfectionist and actually release more stories so that I can actually succeed.
Well, I won't say you necessarily have to be less of a perfectionist. I think the more you do it, the better and faster you'll get at it. That's just building up that speed, especially in the beginning. It's like writing your first comic book. It seems like only 22 pages would be simple, but sometimes that might take you 2 months. And that's okay. But then once you get into the flow of it, you're like, oh, I might be able to do one of these every 2 weeks. It's just teaching yourself that skill, get faster and faster at it.
I hope so. I think I am. I'm doing like the second part right now, and I can definitely feel that I definitely know what I'm doing a lot more.
Oh, you'll just and that goes going back to the school thing. I don't think school for any creative field is a necessary thing because if you wanted to get into film or comics, you're already doing it. If you want to get into comics, you can just start making comics. You don't need anybody's permission. You could technically do the same thing with film, or I'm sure there's somebody in your town or city, no matter where people are at, shooting indie films. Volunteer and learn how to do it. Why you don't have to go to school to learn that kind of stuff.
It's funny, I literally did that. I got a documentary of myself, like a school documentary. Someone made a school documentary of me. And I befriended that person. I was like, why did you make a school documentary of me? That's so random. But I befriended that person, and people are like, oh, if you go to film school, it's good because you'll make connections. I can just go to a film school without getting money and befriend those people on the spot, guys. I
I
don't have
mean,
to pay $50,000 to be there.
and I've been in schools, I've seen that kind of stuff. I taught for a while as well, creative writing courses.
Mm.
And most of the people who go to school don't actually ever end up doing the stuff in that field
Wait.
creatively. Well, they think maybe that'll give them the motivation and maybe it'll give them the connections in the direction. You don't need any of that. You can go find, like you said, you can go find your people. You just have to get out of the house. I think a lot of people sit and wait for something to come to them, and it's like you said, I know for a fact they're shooting independent films in Utah. If I and I know a person that's doing it. I've asked, can I come on set and just watch, learn? Think about all the contacts you'd make just going there and doing that for free. You've got actors and lighting people and sound people and directors and writers and everything else, and you get to see how it works. That's where you're going to learn. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's by far a better experience for being a creative than necessarily going to school. Can you imagine if Lady Gaga tried to go to school for singing? Why?
A lot of these famous people probably fail in school because
Oh
they
yeah.
teach completely different things.
It's when you look at a lot of these people, it's not like they went to Juilliard to become an actor, those
Mm.
kind of things. It's like no, they just started acting.
I was gonna say something. Oh, I was gonna say that like, oh, I didn't just sit around. I literally went to Emerald City Con and I spoke to you and I was like, got to know you and your crazy books. And I prefer that than just being waiting. I wonder who's gonna apply for my podcast.
No, you're doing it. That's the trick is you've got to get out of the house. And now after not only meeting you in Emerald City, now we're going to do a podcast together. Now we're
Mm.
friends, right? And so now we have
Yes.
a connection. And hey, maybe we're just friends for the rest of our lives, and that's all it ever is. And I'll be more than happy about that because I have another friend who loves comics and movies that we can talk about that kind of stuff. But who knows, 10 years from now, I might bump into something and be like, oh, I'm not the right person for that. You should talk to Sophia.
And I might say something about you too. Maybe my career will flourish and I'll be thinking that I need to write a story and I'm like, who could write a dark comedy?
Or maybe it's just you're like, hey, can you tell me how you did this or why you did this? Those kind of conversations that I have with people all the time.
Mhm.
And that's where I learn the most from.
Who do you think you learned the most from like in your career?
On a one-on-one basis, I take out writers that I've read and those kind of things. Probably Brian Stelfreeze. He and I shared some studio space for a couple of years, and he and I had been friends for years before that. And he was just like that guy that I'm. He and I both are a little slow when it comes to learning, and
Me
and
too.
you need to and you need to tell us bluntly. It doesn't help me if you just pet my ego, right? I need
Yeah.
you to tell me if something's good or bad because that's the only way I learn. And
Mm.
Brian was one of those people that just never held back. And he'd be like, "Hey, you can't do that in a comic book. Hey, you can't." And it'd be stuff like something as simple as it'll sound silly to you, but like, oh, the person walks in the room and turns off and in one panel turns the lights off and turns the lights back on. It flips the switch off and on. You can't do that in a comic in one panel,
Mm.
right? That has to be two or three panels. And so it's just simple stuff like that that he helped me learn. And then probably one of the biggest pieces of advice that I learned from him that I think everybody, especially creative, should try to achieve. He told me that he never wanted anybody to feel nothing about his work. He either wanted them to love it or hate it. Anything in between was a loss. I think a lot of people suffer, creatives are scared about the hate part, right? And let's be honest, let's be straight. No matter what you do in a creative field, whether that's music, film, TV, all of it, somebody's going to hate it. Somebody's going to hate it with all the energy in their being. And you have to be okay with that. But once Brian taught me that, it changed how I wrote. Like I started writing differently when he told me that because I for a long time I've been trying to write what I thought everybody else wanted to read. And I was trying to make sure that I didn't rock any boats. And
Mhm.
then obviously, as you've seen with my books, I went the exact opposite direction and went, hey, listen, you're either going
Yeah.
to love, there's people that are offended by the word sex doll, and they're going to hate my book just based on that. And that's okay. I have to be okay with that. And so learn to like strive for more. You don't want anybody to go, I read your book and went, it was okay. That's the worst insult. I'd rather you hate it,
I'd rather, because if you hate it, they remember it. And if they love it,
right?
they also remember it.
Right. Yep.